she remembers. Her first baby would have been born more than 70 years ago. Hello, Maggie, how are you?
Not so bad. You like your father?
Am I?
You are. Your face and the smile.
What do you remember about him?
Well, we had him for a long while, but not when he first came into Edlington, because he wanted my front room. And I said, oh no, not while Dr. My precious living.
What did he want it for?
To have it for a surgery for 2 hours a day.
How did you come to Edlington?
I came in to Edlington in 1918, permanent.
Were you on your own?
I took my son with me. I had just one boy.
What had happened to your husband?
Got killed. Well, he was missing. And all I got was he must have been killed.
You married again when you were in Edlington, did you?
Yes, I was just turned 30 when I remarried.
Who did you marry?
James Ackroyd.
What did Jim do? What work?
Rod Manor.
What was life like for him then? Tell me about it.
Terrible.
How many children did you have then with Jim?
I have five Ackroyds and one Gilpin.
How did you set about setting up to have a baby in those days?
Well, we had to do the best we could. There's no clinics and that in them days. We mostly had them at home.
What would you do when you knew you were pregnant? How did you know you were pregnant?
Carry on, just ordinary. Go on with his work and his washing and everything as usual, up to the last. We had a midwife. Then if the doctor was needed, she sent for him.
Did anyone look after you after you'd had the baby? What happened
No,
then?
you used to sit up and do your own nappies. Sit up and wash your own nappies in bed. But you had to stop in bed for 10 days in them days. There's no getting up next day.
Tell me, when before you got married the first time, how much did anybody tell you about married life?
No, I was simple. When I was first married and I was having my first child, I was simple as could be. I didn't what they did. When the midwife told me what to get, I said, right, what do you want a pair of sharp scissors for?
What did you think was going to happen?
I thought they were going to go. She said, no, I'll be rude. Got to come out the same way it went in. Might as well tell you the truth, what she told me.
And until then you knew nothing. Tell me what it was like having that first baby.
Well, I think I've nearly forgotten it. I know it was hard at the time.
Now, these days, I notice that there's sort of a lot of old people around the village and not so many young people. Now, were there many old people around when you were young?
No.
When you were young, what did you think it would be like when you got older?
To tell you the truth, I never thought. I've just took life as it's come.
What do you think about it now? Do you feel old now?
Sometimes, and sometimes I don't.
How old do you feel today?
Well, I don't feel 95. Honest, I don't.
You don't look 95
No,
either.
I don't feel it. I don't feel no older than I did when I was 70. So it's no good telling a lie, is it?
This is a house to which Maggie Ackroyd came in 1918 as a young widow to live with her mother. And we've used the experiences of the Ackroyd family to trace the changes in this century in society. Eric, how typical were the changes in Edlington of what was going on elsewhere?
Well, you've got some variations. It's a mining village. It started off late as a community and there's been migration out of it and so on. But it's fairly typical, I think, of the nation, indeed, of what's been happening in all the developing countries. And that is, there's been a dramatic revolution in population over the last 100 years. And in the United Kingdom, it's meant that instead of about 7% of the population being over 60, we now end up with about 21%. Of the population over 60, that's obviously treble the number.
But why has that happened?
I think there are two main reasons. The first of them is to do with survival. It's not really true to say that people are actually living longer. But more people are getting there, more people are surviving, getting to 60, getting through the travails of childhood and young manhood and womanhood and so on. But there is another reason, of course, a very important factor, and that is that the reason why the proportion of older people is now so high is because the proportion of young people is so low. Because in the same 90, 100 years, the proportion of younger people, under 15, 16 in the population, has dropped with equal drama from about 36% to 20%.
You know, everything you were saying becomes all too obvious if we just look into our own families, like I've done with the Ackroyds.
That's right. If you take my own great-grandparents, for instance, they had 14 children. She died before they'd grown up. He died before he'd finished work. Now, experience of generations today is quite different to that, with birth control and more regard for health and changing social attitudes, smaller families. It's a whole different experience.
Why don't we appreciate it?
It's very familiar to us. It's too close to us to understand completely. And I think that's why an organisation like mine, the Centre for Policy on Ageing, has to try desperately to persuade politicians and the public that this enormous change has taken place and that the social and political implications of people retiring earlier and living longer and having a lot more time in the last phase of their life becomes more and more important.
Now this place is where I was bringing you. Oh, and what I want to show you is inside here in the church.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Now the window over the altar is a memorial to my father, and was, after he died, was raised by a subscription from his patients. It's sort of a spontaneous act. I think it's rather nice, and it's really, I think it's a memorial to thousands of acts, of small acts of kindness that he probably didn't recognise at the time, that just came naturally to him. You know, it's odd sitting in this seat for me, because I feel as though I'm the same person as sat in this church 50 years ago.
But the rest of us have moved on, life's moved on. Other people see you differently. You can't live your life as though it's on a desert island. The stages you pass through are perceived by the rest of us, and you have changed, in effect.
Yes, but I mean, I know everything else has changed, but the sort of essential me, the person who lives inside my skull, is the boy who was here.
Well, the way I feel it is both my parents are dead, have been dead some years. I feel that I am the last generation now, that I am beginning to think in terms of retrospect, coming to terms with the past, looking back, last of the line.
Oh, that, you see, because both my parents are dead, and yet I don't feel like the end of the line. I feel as though I've been cut off. I find I'm cut off very often from information. I say to myself, well, my mother will tell me about that, and then I realise she's not there. But, do you see, because I'm a writer and, and do television and radio, and I don't have a proper job, as they'd call it in Edlington. I have a series of jobs that I enjoy doing, and I have no career structure. I don't have a job from which I'm going to be retired. So I don't have any stages in my life, and it's a continuum. How am I going to know about aging?
But you do have social stages, even if you don't have work stages. You must have gone through stages with the family, children growing up and that kind of thing, and that makes life roll over, and that should enable you to start placing yourself more in a period and coming to terms with your life.
My father could sing though, couldn't
Yes,
he?
he could.
You don't know the difference.
Oh, I do.
What do you remember about him, really?
That he was a very caring person.
I think Jimmy O Donnell was the doctor for the time. Taking the conditions during that period from during the 1920s right to the beginning of the war, through the early 30s on the days of depression. I think Jimmy O Donnell was the doctor for that period.
Well, why?
He accounted for himself, more or less, not just as a doctor. He had to have an art in psychiatry. He had to be a sociologist. He had to be numerous things other than being a doctor. And the depression during that period, it didn't just affect individual houses. It affected everybody.
Let's do a little test. Lillian, how big a family do you come from yourself?
One of 9. I'm the second eldest of 9.
And how many children of your own have you got?
3.
How about you, Dave?
One of 6, and my uncle had 13 children. The rest of the family, including the nephews and nieces, would range about 56 to 60 youngsters inside this village.
You filled a street
yeah, we did eventually, but the point is, Michael, that during that period, from the early days of 1911 right through the 20s and 30s, predominantly the large families. The facts are we're getting less and less in families now.
Yeah.
If you get a family of 3, that would be the maximum. Young people today are saying, if you can't rear above 2 children, you don't have above 2 children.
That's true.
It's true.
Because people have seen what the parents have suffered and the grandparents have suffered from years gone by having large families. Tell you what might be a problem, Michael, as years go on and people are retiring now at 55, 60, with at least 20 to 25 years life left in them. It's the way they're going to live or use the time. And this is going to be a difficulty because Edlington can give them very little, as far as that goes.
Well, his only asset now is a dead pit, isn't it?
Well, we've only a dead pit. What they've done, I mean, they've absolutely decimated the industry and decimated the village at the same time.
Can't think we're talking here about old people. I mean, what is an old person?
Well, I should imagine today an old person's 90-year-old. Because they won't admit it today how old they are. And
how old were they when you were young?
well, 65 or 60 years old. And then they didn't like you to know now because they thought that was old, but not.
Do you feel old now?
I don't.
Are you ever going to feel old?
No, I'm not.
It's what's in here.
So
You're as old as you feel.
No, I don't regard myself old.
When are you going to be old?
I'm 67 years of age. I'm hoping to be old when I'm 84.
What about 83? Or
Well, no, I put a mark on it, Michael. I said 84.
why?
And if I lived to be that age, I'd be very, very grateful.
We're all going to stay young, aren't we? Here's to being young.
Here's to being young.
God bless
Apart
you.
from his money.
Coming back to Edlington and hearing people talk about my father has been a bit of a bittersweet experience. But the extraordinary thing is that much of what he and his medical contemporaries work for has actually been achieved. One result of this, of course, is that most of us now choose to have smaller families, and all of us expect to live to a grand old age. The result? An aging population. In Great Britain, already over 1/5 of the population is over the age of 60. Yet far from facing up to the challenges posed by this change, most of us haven't even recognized that the change has taken place.